Dabo, and everybody else. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, ranking the coaches across the Power 5. We have posted the Pac-12 and the Big 12. We now move on to the ACC. We ask that you check out the videos on this channel. Our video library is massive, huge. And we deliver, we believe, the best discussion, debate, and analysis in college football. So please check out the videos, and then hopefully you'll subscribe to keep building the channel and keep us going. Also, like the videos, share them, and comment down below. All right, we're going to run through the 14 ACC coaches, and this is about a rating and a ranking right now. How good do I believe these coaches are right this second? Not based on legacy, what they've done long term, but right now. All right, at number 14, I've got Manny Diaz from Miami. Does this necessarily mean that I think Manny Diaz is going to be an awful head coach? Yes, it is based to a small degree on projection. I'm making somewhat of a projection, but basically I've just got to go on the new head coaches, especially if they're new, period, to the FBS level of head coaching, then I'm going to rank them at the bottom. Unless there are head coaches in the conference, as you have seen in the Big 12 and the Pac-12, that I believe are underperforming, that are doing a poor job. Therefore, I will elevate the new coach above those coaches that are underperforming. All right, so I've got a neutral play on the new head coaches. Manny Diaz, of course, takes over at Miami. He was the defensive coordinator there, and he did a great job. Obviously, he brought in a different scheme, a different approach, a more aggressive take on the defense, and let those athletes run and hit and get after the football. Now, can he take what he was able to do as defensive coordinator and run a program? He was given the keys at Temple. Maybe that's what he was ready for at that point. We'll see if he's ready for the Power 5 and the ACC and the expectations at Miami. All right, the first thing he needs to do is stop losing to inferior talent like Duke and Georgia Tech and Virginia and Boston College like they did last year. This team, I know there's an adjustment to a new head coach, but this team is going to acclimate itself a little bit less. There's going to be less of a demand because obviously Manny Diaz is familiar. This team has no excuses but to win a bad division that was won by a 7-loss team in Pitt last year. They should win the Coastal Division with at least 8 or 9 wins, and Manny Diaz should get the job done in year 1. Now, if he doesn't, should he be on the hot seat? Of course not. Number 14 is Manny Diaz of Miami. At number 13, I've got Geoff Collins of Georgia Tech. He took over for Matt Rule, was going to be handing the program over to Manny Diaz. Of course, Diaz was only the Temple head coach for about 3 weeks. 15-10 at Temple in relief of Rule. He did go 7-1 in the American Conference, almost won the conference championship, but lost to UCF. All right, now he's going to try to transform the Georgia Tech offense from prehistoric triple option to a conventional offense that we see in college football. Spread the field, get the ball in playmakers' hands, throw it 30 or 40 times, run the spread. All right, it's going to be difficult out of the gate, obviously, because the roster has been recruited to play the triple option attack. And he needs to recruit better than Paul Johnson. I know it's difficult from an admission standpoint to get kids enrolled at Georgia Tech, but this school plays ACC football. They play big-time college football, and they are surrounded by the best college football players for an urban area in the country. Atlanta, Georgia is a mecca for college football talent, high school football talent that is moving on to the next level. And Georgia Tech needs to start to get its share. So let's see if Geoff Collins, with this offensive approach, modern day, can bring better athletes to Georgia Tech. I've got Geoff Collins at number 13. At number 12, Willie Taggart of Florida State. 2018 was a disaster. I'm not overstating that. Florida State was atrocious. 5-7 with that talent. They scored 3 points in the opener against Virginia Tech, which made many people believe that Virginia Tech was going to be a 9 or 10 or 11 win team with a great defense. No, they were awful too. But Florida State was even worse. They lost by 3 touchdowns and scored 3 points at home in the opener. And it didn't get any better. This team almost lost to Louisville, who was losing to everybody by 1,000,000 points. Florida State, out of 12 games, played 2 decent games. They beat Boston College at home by 1 point, and they beat Wake Forest, a good 7-6 Wake Forest team, by 3 touchdowns. Something happened in that game that clicked. Willie Taggart, supposed to be an offensive guru. Now he brings in Ed Briles to try to fix the offense or work with him to fix the offense. The offensive line coach needs to get the job done as well. This was embarrassing last year. And again, for a guy that is supposed to be an offensive coach, and the offense was atrocious. All right, looking back, he did turn around Western Kentucky. They were 2-10. They were 7-5 when he left. He took over a South Florida program, 2-10 his first season. He left them in great shape at 10-2. So he's turned around a couple programs, had the cup of coffee at Oregon. The recruiting's been decent for Willie Taggart. Not great, but it hasn't fallen apart. He's brought in top 15 classes, which you would expect at Florida State. All right, at number 12 in the ACC is Willie Taggart of FSU. Our number 11 ranked coach is North Carolina State's Dave Doeren. In the last 5 years, he's gone 8-5, 7-6, 7-6, 9-4, 9-4. Pretty much what you would expect out of North Carolina State. They schedule softies non-conference, so they usually bulk up on 3 or 4 wins non-conference, and then they go their typical 5-3 in the conference. And that's pretty much what Dave Doeren has done, but he had his window of opportunity. He had a really good quarterback in Ryan Finley. He had NFL weapons both at wide receiver and running back. He had 2 years ago that stellar defensive front led by Bradley Chubb. Those guys all moved on to the NFL, and they couldn't beat anyone. They couldn't beat anyone significant. And this team never beats any good teams. They have not beaten any good teams. The best teams they beat last year were Boston College. They beat Boston College. They beat Wake Forest. Those were the best teams they beat. They never beat anyone good. They get embarrassed by Clemson every year. And I understand that there's no shame in that, but Clemson just became a juggernaut recently in terms of just annihilating people. North Carolina State always has this Clemson showdown, and they get wasted. And they lose to anybody who's any good. Look at the bowl game last year against Texas A&M. 54-13. Okay, Dave Doeren's number 11 in the ACC. All right, in the 10th position, we have Pat Narduzzi of Pitt. This is a statistic I don't think most college football fans would be able to come up with in projecting the win totals for ACC Coastal Division teams over the last several seasons. Miami has the best record going back to 2011 in the ACC at 21-11. You know who's second? Pitt, 20-12. Now, of course, they had one of the ugliest division championships in 2018, losing 7 games, lost to Penn State by 45 points, lost to Central Florida by 31 points, but they did play one of the toughest, yes, I will say the toughest non-conference schedule in college football in 2018. Pat Narduzzi is 0-3 in bowl games. I don't like that. So unless Miami wakes up, they can compete, continue to compete, along with Duke and Georgia Tech and Virginia and everybody else that's muddled up there in a bad division. He's 28-24 in the Coastal Division, but they're just not making much progress. I know that they went to the ACC championship game, but it was basically defaulted to them. Not making much progress, and the defense has been a disappointment. Pat Narduzzi was a defensive genius, considered one at Michigan State, leading those teams that went top 5 in the nation and won Rose Bowls. Comes to Pitt, and they've been underwhelming defensively. Our number 10 coach in the ACC is Pat Narduzzi of Pitt. All right, at number 9, we go to Boston College and Steve Addazio. This guy basically goes 7-6 every year. Take out last year, they went 7-5 because they played the bowl game that was rained out or canceled due to lightning against Boise State. Otherwise, he's gone 7-6 every year but one. He's built an identity. He knows what he needs to do at Boston College. They're not going to recruit well. They're tucked away in New England, away from any meaningful football on the high school level. And so he brings in guys that fit his program. And he's built a technically sound team that's fundamentally sound, runs the football, bleeds the clock, plays great defense most of the time. And, of course, they get the running game this year again with A.J. Dillon. And they had one of the best offensive lines in the conference, probably the best outside of Clemson in the conference last year. Now, again, he's got to find a way to recruit better. I know he's finding the right fits, and the recruiting ranking doesn't necessarily fit what he's doing, but it's got to be better. He's basically brought in the worst recruiting classes based on the rankings. So you can either go, got to be better recruiting, or he really coaches him up, because he keeps going 7-6 every year. Steve Addazio of Boston College, our 9th-ranked coach in the ACC. All right, at number 8, we go to Syracuse and Dino Babers. All right, 4-8, 4-8 the first 2 seasons. Had those one stellar win per year. Virginia Tech, nice win in 2016. Then, of course, Clemson, beating them at home was huge. But still, he went 4-8, 4-8. Then last year, 10-3, the number 2 seed in the ACC at 6-2. Is that going to turn out to be an aberration, or is that the new standard at Syracuse? Now, let's temper the excitement and the evaluation of Syracuse football in 2018. They were good. They deserved, they earned a top 15 finish based on the record at 10-3. But they were very fortunate to take on a West Virginia team without Will Greer and their 2 best wide receivers and left tackle. And so they were gifted a bowl game to a large extent. They also really didn't beat any good teams. Their 2 best wins were North Carolina State, Wake Forest, and Boston College. Their 3 best wins. So they didn't beat any good teams. They beat 3 decent teams. All right, but they still went 10-3. They won the games. Can they do it again? Can Dino Babers sustain this? The recruiting has not been great. It probably never will be at Syracuse. They got to go down to Pennsylvania. They need to get some of those New Jersey players as well. It's all about the system. He's established his up-tempo offense. They need to execute it to a T and bring in some people that are interested on the offensive side of the ball of playing that style of football, which isn't that abnormal at this point in the game, but still Dino Babers does it a little bit differently at warp speed than just about anyone else. And he is the 8th-rated coach in the ACC, according to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. All right, let's get to number 7, and Justin Fuente of Virginia Tech. I thought this was an excellent hire from Memphis, where he won. And for the first 2 years, he was proving me right at 19-8, winning a Coastal Division, playing Clemson very, very well in the ACC championship game within a score. But in 2018, they had a very young roster to start. They had guys get hurt in the offseason like nobody in college football, and that continued throughout the season, and they were just not a good football team. The Florida State opener in winning 24-3 in Tallahassee was obviously a tease. Florida State turned out to be awful. And this team lost to Old Dominion by 14 points. They lost 4 consecutive games late in the season and were blown out in all those games against marginal teams. But they still beat Virginia, so Justin Fuente at least has kept the winning streak going against Virginia in these 3 seasons. Or make it 4 seasons. But he led this team to its first losing season as a program going back to 1991. The transfer portal killed this roster during the offseason. It could be another difficult ride for the Hokies this season under Justin Fuente, our 7th-rated coach in the ACC right now. All right, at number 6, we've got Scott Satterfield from Louisville, 46 years old. He has never had a Power 5 job, either as a head coach or as an assistant. He has coached at FIU, Toledo, and Appalachian State. He's 51-24, 38-10 in conference play. He's won 3 straight Sun Belt championships. He's an offensive mind. He's a great play caller. He should fit in cleaning up the mess left by Bobby Petrino, but of course it's going to take him some time. Scott Satterfield, our 6th-ranked coach, based on what he did at Appalachian State coming to Louisville. All right, let's get to the top 5. David Cutcliffe at number 5 from Duke. All right, you got to put the overall record into context. He is 67-72 at Duke, 5 games under 500, but 14 games over 500 since 2013 when they won the Coastal Division Championship. He's now taken this program to 6 bowl games in the last 7 years. The coaching community across the country has great respect for this guy. I think they know something. They know that he really knows how to coach, and he is just a first-class individual with character and integrity in leading this program. And, of course, is given much credit, and understandably so, for crafting the skills of both Eli and Peyton Manning. David Cutcliffe, taking over a program at Duke that had not won a bowl game since 1961. So again, take the record into context. We've got David Cutcliffe ranked at number 5 in the ACC. Number 4, Wake Forest and Dave Clawson. Guys won 3 straight bowl games at Wake Forest. He took over for Jim Grube, who did a fine job at Wake Forest, but the program was waning at that point. Grube had 5 consecutive losing seasons. Dave Clawson took over the program and did not show immediate signs of improvement. 3-9, 3-9. But he has really developed players, and he completely revamped the offense. It was one of the worst offenses in Power 5 football his first season or 2, and they have been lightning, warp speed, throwing the football all over the place, and he has recruited well at wide receiver in particular to be able to do that. He's finding the right players, putting them into a system, and bringing them to a program that's difficult to recruit to, considering their competition. Dave Clawson at Wake Forest is the 4th-rated coach, according to MarkRogersTV, in the ACC. Number 3, Bronco Mendenhall, Virginia. So after 11 years at BYU, winning 99 games, losing only 43, his teams won the Mountain West Conference twice. He finished ranked 4 times in 11 years at BYU. So he comes to Virginia, where they had been down for 10 years. And the first season is basically just a do-over. It's a, let's just see what we have. Let's start to build a system. We're not going to win many games, and they didn't at 2-10. Then the next season, they get to a bowl game for the first time in several seasons, 6-7. Then last year, they really played well down the stretch in finishing 8-5 and just taking South Carolina to the woodshed in postseason play 28-0. Bronco Mendenhall can coach. He built high-caliber defenses at BYU. Now he's doing the same at Virginia. Now they're complicated, but he knows that he's got good student-athletes at Virginia that can run this defense, and they finished 3rd in the ACC on that side of the ball in 2018. Our 3rd-ranked coach in the ACC is Bronco Mendenhall of Virginia. All right, the next guy's won a national championships, and it's not a Dabo Swinney. It's Mack Brown of North Carolina. And I know that I said that I'm ranking these coaches based on right now. Well, with Mack Brown, we don't know what right now is. Right now has been a long time ago. Of course, he made his name at Texas. He was there for 16 years, left North Carolina to go to Texas, and he won big at Texas. He won 77% of his games, 75% in the Big 12. Texas finished ranked 13 out of 16 years that Mack Brown was the head coach. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal at Texas, or it wouldn't have prior to that. But during much of the 90s, Texas was down, and certainly they were down after Mack Brown. So he at least kept Texas at a level that we expect Texas to play at. He finished in the top 10 6 times and, of course, won the national championship in 2005 and got his team back to the national championship game in 2009. Unfortunately, they lost Colt McCoy in the first series of the game and never had one of the best starting quarterbacks in the country to play Alabama. Most likely, they still would have lost, but yes, they lost by 16 points in that game, but they kept it within 3 points, 24-21, with 5 minutes to play. Well, that's ancient history. I digress. During his first stop at North Carolina, Mack Brown, his last 6 North Carolina teams, from a program that went 1-10 his first year, they finished ranked in the AP Top 25 5 times in the last 6 seasons under Mack Brown and twice in the top 10. Can you imagine right now North Carolina finishing in the top 10? Well, they did under Mack Brown twice in 5 years. And then finally, the number 1 coach in the ACC, possibly right now, the best coach in college football. That's a later list. After we get through the conference rankings, we will rank the top 10 in the nation. This guy might be number 1. Urban Meyer's retired. Nick Saban, yes, historically the best, but right now, certainly in the ACC, Dabo Swinney is the guy. Wow, what a culture change he has brought to Clemson. Yes, Clemson has always been surrounded by talent. It's always been a good football program. But we go through history and see, since winning a national championship in 1981, a ton of 9-3s and 8-4s and 7-5s for Clemson football. And this guy had never been a head coach. He was the wide receiver coach at Clemson from 2003 through 2008. And what a change. He's won 116 games and lost 30. He's 69-16 in the ACC. And of course, he's taken this team to 4 consecutive ACC championships and 4 college football playoff appearances with 2 national championships. He has completely changed the balance of power in the ACC from Florida State, Clemson, and he brought it to the same level, and then he just left Florida State in the dust. 55-4 the past 4 seasons with 2 national championships, and again, 4 trips to the playoffs, and 30 out of 32 wins in the ACC. Think about when it started to turn in 2011. Maybe the biggest game for Clemson football historically in this new era was them defeating LSU in the 2011 Chick-fil-A Bowl. When they came back out of nowhere, won the game 25-24, completed the 4th and 16 on the final drive. Yeah, it was just a bowl game, but they played an elite school that was coming off a national championship game the previous season, one of the top 5 programs at that point in the nation, and they won. Then the next year, they took on an Ohio State team that came this close to playing in the BCS championship game, and they beat Ohio State in a classic game, 40-35 in the Orange Bowl. And you saw the pendulum swing. And that was coming off that embarrassment against West Virginia and Geno Smith in the Orange Bowl, giving up 70 points. Dabo hires Brent Venables to run the defense, and Clemson is off and running, and they are the model program in college football. And again, those are the numbers, those are the results, but he's done it by being a hard-nosed coach with a soft exterior who welcomes kids in, has built a culture, a community, a family at Clemson, and it has just been masterful. Again, he's won 80% of his games, and during the same time period, Clemson had won 59% of its games during the same number of games prior to Dabo. He's won just about, about 80% of his games in conference. They were winning 53% of their conference games before he got there. Dabo Swinney's the best in the business. Certainly the best in the ACC. Again, I will have to really think about the Dabo-Nick Saban comparison, and we will certainly open up the debate once we get to the top 10 in the nation. For right now, it's just top 14 in the ACC, the rankings 14 all the way up to number 1. Would love to get your perspective, your rankings below in the comments section. Check out our ACC video, our ACC channel, with SG1 Sports, MarkRogersTV and SG1 Sports combining on an ACC channel. Check it out, where we will provide ACC content there as well. Keep it right here, locked in. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, and we'll see you next time.